Hi folks, happy Friday. I trust that you've had a good week. Here at Scavenger headquarters, it's been quite a busy week, one way and another. As usual, let's start with what have I been reading. First was Stone by Adam Roberts. It's one of his earlier works dating back to 2002. Adam Roberts is one of the more prolific science fiction authors writing in the UK today. He puts out about a book a year, and they're nearly all singletons or standalone stories, which is rather quaint by today's standards. Anyway, Stone. The story begins in an unusual prison in the interior of a star. The protagonist is the sole prisoner. It's not clear why or what he's in for, although we do get some background as the story progresses. He's completely isolated, but somehow a message gets through to him. Would he buy his freedom in exchange for one contract killing? The tricky part is the job is actually to kill a whole planet full of people, but leave the planet habitable afterwards. He accepts. The first part of the book covers him being sprung from his impossible to escape from jail, which, if you remember, is in the interior of a star. The authorities, such as they are in this utopian future, are hot on his tail pretty much immediately. In this world, nanotech is ubiquitous. Every person has the so-called dot tech in them, repairing, enhancing and protecting them. Our protagonist's challenge is that his dot tech was removed on being jailed, so part of his evasion is creating a plausible story for why his body is deteriorating, succumbing to basic problems like insect bites, infections, skin rashes, wounds, when these are a thing of the distant past for everybody else. This book is chock full of ideas. We get a novel approach to interstellar travel, personal interstellar travel, by the way, pervasive nanotech, as I've said, several different planetary environments to explore, all richly described, plus a tough problem to solve. How do you kill millions of dot tech protected people that are extremely hard to kill? There's one very memorable passage where our escaped prisoner is forced to murder someone, and that turns out to be very difficult indeed, with comic horror results. The utopian culture described in Stone was quite reminiscent, I thought, of Ian Banks's culture. It's peaceful, it's decadent, there's no money, people are pleasure-seeking, it's gender fluid, you can change your gender whenever you like. But I never felt like it was a cheap copy, not at all. The influence is there to see, but that's all, I think. My only irritation on reading it was the conceit of the narration being delivered in the form of letters to a stone, the titular stone, in fact. Just a random stone. It does become clear at the very end of the book why this is happening, but in general I would have been quite happy with a straightforward first-person narrative. That's a minor issue. Overall, I really enjoyed it, and I was kept guessing till the end as to the big question. Who has hired the protagonist to wipe out a whole planet, and why? I really recommend it, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of Adam Roberts' backlist. Next was a classic Big Dumb Object tale, Orbitsville by Bob Shaw. Ace Starship Captain Vance Garamond is called to see the volatile president of the corporation, which has a monopoly on interstellar transport. Elizabeth Lindstrom, who's the effective ruler of both Earth and its sole colony world, Nova Terra. And while he's waiting to see Elizabeth, there is an unfortunate incident involving her young son. Knowing Lindstrom to be unstable, Vance knows that he's in deep shit and flees with his family to his orbiting ship and does a runner into deep space. All of this happens in the first 20 or so pages. After a bit of messing about, Vance and the crew of the Bissendorf, his ship, arrive somewhere. They find a ginormous, clearly artificial sphere. There's no spoilers here because that's literally written on the blurb on the back. They find a ginormous, clearly artificial sphere where a star ought to be. An entrance is eventually found, and they're amazed to find a habitable inner surface with a good atmosphere, lush vegetation, and apparently uninhabited. And land, lots of land. Actually, an unimaginable amount of land, something of the order of 5 billion times the land surface of Earth, which is pretty extraordinary, really. Elizabeth and her forces do catch up with them, but differences are put to one side, at least at first, in the interest of exploiting the new opportunities. Vance is fated as the saviour of mankind and hugely popular back on Earth, but has batshit crazy Elizabeth truly forgiven Vance? Well, what do you think? Vance ends up crash landing his starship on the interior surface of Orbitsville, a ridiculous distance away, it turns out, from the entrance and his family. The rest of the book, the majority of it, details their arduous journey as Vance and his crew attempt to make it back. I enjoyed it. It's a pretty short book, well under 200 pages, and Bob Shaw does not muck about. We're quickly thrown into the story. And I think he does an excellent job conveying the mind-bending scale of Orbitsville and the opportunities it presents and the practical difficulties. It's good stuff. My next read was a return to the Honourverse with Book 2, The Honour of the Queen. And once again, this is hardly merit-worthy from a literary point of view, but as a page-turner, a popcorn palate cleanser, it worked pretty well for me. It's set 2 or 3 years after the first book, and Honor Harrington is now a respected skipper of the heavy cruiser HMS Fearless, assigned as escort to a diplomatic mission at Grayson. a backward relic of a very early wave of human colonisation. Fortunately or unfortunately for the inhabitants of Grayson, they are smack in the middle of a geopolitical Cold War between Manticore and the People's Republic of Haven, the baddies of the piece. The premise of the story is that Grayson's origins as an ultra-conservative religious colony have coloured their view of women and their place in society. The notion of a woman serving in the military is bad enough, even worse to have one in a senior position of command. A good chunk of the story is them getting over themselves. There are wheels within wheels, some epic space battles, death and mayhem, and a pretty satisfying ending. Like I say, it's not a literary masterpiece, but for me it was a guilty pleasure. Next we have To Your Scattered Bodies Go by Philip Jose Farmer. This was my first Farmer and I wasn't sure really what to expect. In this book, right at the beginning, we get what can only be interpreted as a mass reincarnation. Hundreds and probably more awake on the banks of a great river, stark naked and hairless. To add to the fun, it's quite a mix of different cultures and historical contexts with different languages spoken. There's even an alien and a Neanderthal. I'd somehow picked up prior to reading it that the protagonist was called Richard Burton, but I assumed it was the actor Richard Burton. So I was a bit confused to find it was an entirely different Richard Burton, an 18th century swordsman, philanderer, explorer, traveller, translator. So a real person, a historical figure, a polymath. There's so much going on in this book, I don't know what to tell you. Hermann Goering makes an appearance, as do a number of other historical figures. It is thoroughly bonkers. So focusing on the early part of the book, I enjoyed the bewilderment of the newly arrived nudes with varying reactions and prudishness dictated to a large degree by the cultural background of the individual. Things are all very friendly at first, but weapons are quickly fashioned from stones and bamboo, and things go a bit tribal from there. Each person arrives with a stackable bucket arrangement strapped to their arm, and at first it's not clear what it's for, but at 1 mile intervals along the riverbank are stone mushroom statue things, which have many bucket-shaped dents in the surface. And after some experimentation, it becomes clear that each person can fill their bucket with food and other supplies once a day via some matter transfer process, simply by plonking their bucket onto this stone mushroom thing. Sandwiches are forthcoming, fruit, steak, cigars, booze, and other bits and bobs, including some chewing gum, which has entertaining effects on those who chew. It's such a bizarre world. I don't know where he got the idea or what he was smoking when he had it, but it is an entertaining read. The story effectively becomes a quest to find the source of the river and the answers to many questions. Why are we here? Who put us here? Is this heaven? Is it real? What's going on? I enjoyed the ride, but I'm not sure I'm in a hurry to read the rest of the books in the series, of which there are, I think, 5 in total. What have you been reading this week? Do let me know, particularly if you've really enjoyed something. I'm always happy to hear your book recommendations. Channel stuff next then. Subscribers are at 2407, which is up 25 on last week. If you're one of those 25, welcome to the gang. I'm John and we do science fiction here. There's a bunch of videos to look at on the channel, so fill your boots and tell your friends while you're about it. Why don't you? As I have hinted the last week or two, I'm finding it a bit of a grind getting videos done at the moment. This is partly due to just conflicting demands on my time, but also just a bit of video fatigue. I'm trying to find a sustainable level, so bear with me while I figure that out. Anyway, on Sunday there was a book haul, including some thrilling shelf browsing footage at my local mecca of used books. It was quite a bumper crop of books in this haul, a mix of shop-based purchases and gluttonously impatient online buying from various used book warehouse operations. There's some great books in there and you should have a look if you haven't already watched it. On Tuesday there was a quick look at some of the best cover art in my collection. I put out a hailing cry for you all to send me your favourites with the idea that I could do another video of your best cover art. A few people did just that and got back to me, but I need a few more to make it work, I think. So let me repeat that request. You can email me images of your own books. My email address is SciFiScavenger@gmail.com, or you can just tell me in the comments what the book is and the edition and I'll find an image online. Comment of the week was from Kenny, who confessed to another collecting addiction to add to the several that he already has. Like me, Kenny really likes the New English Library livery from the 1970s, which seems to have such great artwork. He hints that there are a lot to collect. I'm sorely tempted to join him. I had been considering that. They are really nice and there's lots of really lovely art. Thank you for the extra obsession, Kenny. Thanks a bunch, in fact. And thanks to all of you that take the time to comment. I very much appreciate it. What is next? Book buying. Of course it's book buying. I have had a clicky kind of week. Online baskets have been filled and duly checked out. I've bought a couple of Chris Beckett's, an Adam Roberts or two, a few Paul Macaulay's, and a few other bits and pieces. Now, with shipping, I have several that are still on their way, so they'll get hauled at some point. This coming Sunday, I'm meeting my mother for afternoon tea at a posh cafe in central London. Obviously makes me quite the dutiful son, right? But I will also be hitting a few used bookshops whilst I'm in town, and I'll leave you to decide which is the primary motivation. Have you bought any books this week? Do let me know. Next, a plug. I got an email earlier in the week from Keyshan Knight, who has self-published a book, Memory Puzzles, and I'm happy to give it a shout out here. The story follows Roger Price, a young man who awakens in a hospital morgue with no memory of his past. His quest for the truth plunges him into a world of danger where he is not only a man without a past, but also a wanted criminal. I shall leave the link to it in the description if you want to take a closer look. I haven't read it myself, so I can't vouch for it, but there are quite a few 5-star reviews for it on Amazon. I wish Keyshan the best of luck with their book. Okay, let us take a look ahead. On the channel in the coming week, you can expect the following. On Sunday, there will be a look back at June Part 1. I finally got around to rewatching it for the umpteenth time last weekend, so I shall be sharing what I most liked about it ahead of the release of Part 2 at the end of next week. On Tuesday, there will be a look at my TBR for March. As is now my habit, there will be some footage of me browsing my own shelves, trying to decide what to read, and then a closer look at the books that I chose. And on Thursday, if time allows, and if I get enough responses from you guys, there will be a look at your favourite cover art. Longer range, I've been noodling around with a couple of ideas for some meatier videos, looking right back at some early science fiction, specifically planetary romance or sword and planet or science fantasy, choose your label. It's not a subgenre that I've read much of, so I'm looking forward to the research process. And if I enjoy doing that, there could be a few videos on that topic, so watch this space. What will I be reading in the coming week? I'm a few chapters into City in the Stars, so it's a bit early to say whether I'm going to enjoy it. I can't say that I'm hooked just yet, but we shall see. After that, I should be reading a few more Deathbird stories by Harlan Ellison, which so far have not greatly impressed me from a story point of view. Dare I say, I would rather be reading Stephen King or Clive Barker, which have a similar vibe as far as I can tell. Still, there are several still to read, and perhaps there's a wow factor lurking in there somewhere. We shall see. After that, I just have 2 books left on my TBR for March, so perhaps I'll sneak 1 or 2 more in before the month is out. We shall see. I have The Gods Themselves by Isaac Asimov. It's been a while since I read an Asimov. I'm looking forward to that. And I have Market Forces by Richard Morgan, which I hear good things about and I'm looking forward to reading. I'm also still ploughing my way through Matter on audiobook. I might get that finished this week. Might. But I think it will run into the following weekend. We shall see. As always, thank you for watching. Have a fabulous weekend. And until next time, goodbye for now.